Guys, welcome back to the teaching channel. Today we have a very special guest. We have one of the best teachers in the world to my right, Chris Como, and he is going to be teaching us how to shallow the golf club. You've worked with a lot of good players. You've worked with Tom Kim, who just won. You've worked with Tiger Woods. You've worked with Jason Day. So you have a lot of knowledge that you can share with
our friend Bryson.
Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, that's got to be crazy working with Bryson. Yeah, he's so smart, and like, you guys probably can talk for hours about golf swing.
He's fun, yeah.
So today we're going to talk just about shallowing the golf club. I feel like that's a term that's used in the golf world a lot.
Maybe overused?
Maybe overused. I'm gonna tell you what I feel when I'm trying to get more shallow, because I have actually struggled with taking giant steep divots and shallowing out.
Interesting.
It does help, like getting the club a little bit more shallow in my downswing.
Okay.
So let's go over that, and I want to hear how you would tell me to even get more shallow or shallow out the golf club.
Shallowing the club is something that in smaller circles, it's kind of in vogue right now, but in smaller circles it's been talked about for 20 years almost.
20 years.
Yeah, it's sort of like a popular teaching concept, but like great players organically had some of it in their swing. Not all of them, and that's the hard part, and that's why I said maybe over talked about, because there's actually a lot of guys who don't shallow it a bunch and hit it really good, and be able to kind of like, you know, differentiate, you know, really understand the differences between those styles of swings. I think is important, because sometimes these things can become trends and they just become a runaway train and can actually hurt people as well. So it's an interesting, to me it's an interesting concept. So if someone's coming over the top and they're typically hitting a slice, right? Right. What would the face be at impact for the ball to curve to the right?
Open.
Yeah. So now, imagine you have an open face and you don't come over it, but you come shallow. So show me that real quick.
They have an open face, so say they have a cupped wrist, very cupped, weak grip at the top.
Yeah. And
they try and shallow.
Okay, so let's do the over it first, okay? Yeah. So it's like you're over it, you kind of cast it. This is like the typical whatever that we see. The path is going left, it's a steep shaft. They're oftentimes standing up out of it, so not even taking a deep divot. Yeah. The plane of it, their hands are over, the shaft is steep, but the divot's oftentimes like non-existent. Right. So the divot's shallow, really.
And they're almost falling back too. The weight's going this way to square the face.
Totally, right? So now all of a sudden that face is open, the path is left, they hit a slice. Right. Okay? Maybe not the shot that they ideally want, but they can kind of manage their way around the golf course. Right. And it's like a lot of other things in life, we get comfortable with certain things. Right. And then even though we want better, that's very scary, because the better could be different. Yeah. And some bad too sometimes. Okay, so go ahead, step to it again. And let's do the same open face, but shallow. Now that face is gonna be so far right with a path that's now not left, you know, whether it be neutral or even to the right a little bit. This ball will be out of bounds before it's like 50 yards away from you.
So what you're saying is basically if you try and tell somebody to shallow the golf club that has an open club face, or doesn't understand how to maybe close the face with their wrist angles, whatever, they're gonna leave everything out to the right. If you just say shallow it, and they're in the same positions that they're used to hitting a big over the top move.
Yeah, they got no chance.
So what would you say for golfers out there that are trying to shallow it, like setup wise or grip or wrist angle, like what do we got to do before we use the word shallow?
I mean, I think first part is having some sense of how to square the face up. Right. And typically what you would see is if someone learns how to square the face up better on the way down, whether it be through some wrist angles, the way their form works, whatever, there's a couple different ways to do it. We can talk about some of those. And then they still come over it. So I'm coaching someone to get out of like over the top and not shallow, too shallow. I want to see them hit some balls left. Right. Because now all of a sudden they have this motivation to shallow it to take out the left.
Exactly.
So there's a little bit of a progression to that.
Exactly. When someone's hitting it way weak and right, it's good to get them to actually start hitting hooks and then work them back slowly.
Yes. For most recreational golfers, there's got to be some element of taking that logo and turning it sort of away from you here.
And that usually will kick out a little bit of the shaft too.
It actually will help the shaft fall back a little bit, yes.
Right.
So what's happening is you're going to flexion, and usually people are going a little bit from, say, this vertical wrist set, fancy term is radial deviation, to this flexion and a little bit of out of that radial deviation. Right. Into the, almost like your thumbs are starting to work down. So watch how that shaft is kicking back behind you. Right. And you're still creating air quotes lag, or an angle between the shaft and your lead arm, but it's more from this back of this right wrist, this flexion angle, as opposed to holding it this way. That's gonna really help get the shaft down.
So that's gonna get me in a good shallow position.
More so.
That.
It's an exaggerated feel, but this is one potential feel, right? That I think could really help a lot of people. And then from there, this form can continue to turn towards the target, and now you can see how that face would be coming in really square. And that's kind of where I think a lot of people would benefit getting to, would be learning to get the club head back behind them more, with the face more closed from both their wrist and then how their form turns into the ball. Because, go back to the top real quick, is a huge part of it. Because at the end of the day, I could sit here and then not have the form turn the ball and that face is still open. Again, a little bit in the weeds, but you do need, we want some of this for most golfers, and then this needs to turn towards the target. Otherwise, you could bow it and still have it open. That's no good either.
So, checkpoint number one, you would say when you want to shallow the golf club, is when you get up to the top of your backswing, there has to be some sort of the feeling, at least, as the wrist flattening out and kicking behind you, and now from there we got it on that shallow plane, and from there we can rotate, and that's the feeling.
First part would be the face. Second part would be get a sense of getting the club head as back as you can,
and then now you're trying to get that club head back behind you, that feeling, almost on this angle, this plane.
And then what I would say is I would encourage a person trying to go through this sequence a bit to tee it up a little bit with an iron.
Gotcha.
Because the hard part's going to be to get the angle on the ball now that you're shallow. Because the reality of it is like you're trying to figure out, how do I make all this shallower, but then still create an angle on the ball down at impact? Because otherwise it's just going to be like, so I would have them teed up, and then once it's teed up and they feel like they can, get the club head back behind them, they can get some curve to the left, then you can start to do some stuff with the body, whether it be get more open, or maybe get your hips back a little bit deeper as you're clearing through it to get more angle on it. But then you can do some body motion stuff to help match up sort of the impact correctly.
It's funny because when I thought of shallowing, I used to really think about this butt angle and how, like, if it's working straight down, usually it's a steeper downswing. And I feel like the feeling of having it almost work towards the ball sometimes will kick the shaft out. Now, you said there's multiple ways to do it.
Totally.
But I really want to focus a lot when I'm feeling it. It's just like this versus it working towards the ball.
Yeah.
And when it works out towards the ball, it actually drops it back behind you. So it's that feeling. So let's go over them really quick.
Step one would be curve the ball to the left. Let's keep this like simple, right? Turn this away from you. Feel like this is turning down. You might almost feel like the palm of your right hand's towards the ground.
Right.
Okay. Then even in the fall through, let this have some roll to it.
Close that face down and feel.
Turn down. Yeah.
Turn down.
Yep.
And then now feel the roll.
Full roll.
Get that ball to turn left.
It's exaggerated. This is exaggerated.
No, I like that though.
But some people need to feel this, right? If you can't curve the ball left, it's like, let's bring out the cavalry and just like get this thing full going, and curve it left.
I see so many golfers that cannot turn the golf ball over. They're so weak and cupped at the top. So this exaggeration, this feeling is going to help so many golfers out there.
Beautiful. Love it.
So that was checkpoint one, guys, is getting that club face to turn down and a little shut and behind you. And now,
and if need be, let it roll into the fall through a little bit.
And now we're trying to really work on getting that club behind us now.
Yep.
Now we get here.
Yeah.
But now we're going to exaggerate that feeling.
So before you were bowing it and this was coming over and you hit a pull hook.
Right.
We're still trying to have the same relationship of this face, like your wrist, the club face to the shaft, but now we're saying we want the shaft back there. Cool. So it wasn't as left, it wasn't as much of a low pull hook.
Right.
It's a little higher, definitely came down shallower.
But that divot's nice and shallow for me. That's like a very shallow divot.
So now I'm going to give another asterisk, another warning label. But this is sort of like, would be the next level of it all. But I think it's important for people to at least like in the back of their mind, like have, like mull over it a little bit. So go step to it again. Okay, so you're shallow. So yes, if you're hitting a draw, you want the club head to be out to the right of the target, but you don't actually want your hands to be swinging out to the right.
Right.
You want the club head to be swinging out to the right and your hands to be working some amount left of the direction the club head is going.
Right.
So, this is one of the things that the club head and the hand path are not necessarily going in the same direction. In fact, you don't want them to go in the same direction.
Right.
So this is now where, at least in part, you'll see people potentially open up a little bit with their body. So that helps get the hands working back around a bit as this club head is low and going out to the right. So
the hands are working left, but the club head's working to the right.
So you can almost imagine like a boat going one way and the skier going the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, and your body started to work, right? That's kind of where it's like, yeah, shallowing, but it's part of a system, it's part of an ecosystem, right? So it's like, you gotta get the face square enough. So if there was like a 3-tip type of thing,
right?
Like, get the face more shut to the path. Don't worry about where the path is to start. You know, hook some balls left.
Right.
Then you can shallow it.
Right.
And then let your body start to be more aggressive with its opening.
I mean, there's so much information on how to shallow the golf club. I feel like hopefully you guys took away those 3 checkpoints, and at the end of the day, when you're trying to make a big change or you're trying to get more shallow and hit inside out draws, it's like you're gonna have to go to the range and practice this. It's not just gonna happen. Like, you gotta get out there, feel those positions that we're talking about.
I think part of my point was, this is like at a high level, sort of like broad strokes. I think you got to partner with a coach. There's so many great coaches out there. So I'm a huge advocate with using a channel, using some of this online content as like ways to like develop your own understanding, but then you can go into like lessons and be a better like learner because of it.
Right.
So.
If you want to follow Chris, we're gonna link his Instagram down in the description. Make sure you go follow him. He releases a lot of really good teaching content. One of the smartest guys I've been around. I'm gonna learn a lot from this guy, get better. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Until next time, peace.